The New South Wales government is under renewed pressure to introduce a drug summit and pill testing regimes after a string of music festival overdoses. Joining me live is New South Wales Health Minister Ryan Park. Good to see you, Minister. This is the first time we've spoken this year, so hello to you. New South Wales Labor promised to hold a drug summit should it win government. Your government's progress on that has been pretty slow. Can you tell us when this drug summit is going to happen?
Well, look, we hope to have the summit up and running and in place by this year. We've deliberately made sure that we want to spend the first year on making sure that we got the budget into shape and making sure that we can deliver for our healthcare and other essential workers. That's been our priority, but we did make a commitment. We understand it's important and we'll work through that process.
OK, so you don't have a date set yet?
Not a date yet, but once we do have one, we'll make sure the community knows. I know there is interest from stakeholders across the board, but we deliberately spent our first year in government making sure we were focused on our essential workers, delivering increases in pay and make sure we got improvements in our public services for the community.
Earlier this month, there was a mass MDMA overdose event at a music festival in Melbourne. 7 people placed into induced comas. Victoria Premier Jacinta Allen has ruled out pill testing in that state. When this drug summit eventually happens, will pill testing be firmly on the table up for consideration? Because we know Premier Chris Minns, a social conservative, he has been against it.
Well, no doubt issues like pill testing and others will be discussed and debated as a part of a roundtable and a forum like a drug summit. That's without a doubt. And what we've made very clear is that we're putting in place measures already to make sure our music festivals are safe as possible. We've increased first aid. We've made sure that we've got adequate water and increase in cool zones. We've got improvements in the messages that we're delivering at those sites. And we're making sure that we've got peers, young people, going around and making sure they're checking up on their fellow music festival goers. We think that's important, but no doubt, if there's improvements to make, we'll continue to look at those.
The ACT's Population Health Minister is calling for a national network of drug testing sites around the country that could act like infectious disease monitoring, which tracks emerging health risks and allows authorities to prepare and respond. Just initially, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good idea?
Look, I think we've got to make sure that we keep jurisdiction by jurisdiction focus here. I won't comment on things that are done or discussed in the ACT. The ACT is very different to New South Wales. We've got a much bigger population, much more festivals, and we've got to make sure that we are making them as safe as possible. It's been a priority of mine, working with my colleagues across government to make sure that our music festivals, that young people can go and they're as safe as possible. I've got a teenage son. I want to make sure as he gets older and goes to these types of festivals, him and his mates are as safe as possible. I think that's in the interests of everyone, and it's certainly something that I'll continue to focus on and look at measures both within our own jurisdiction and within across Australia, but also what's happening overseas and trends we're seeing overseas to keep people safe at these types of large festival gatherings. OK, Minister, the first cohort of additional regional paramedics will begin their 6-week induction this month. What can you tell us? Well, terrific initiative. This is a part of our commitment for 500 rural and regional paramedics, an additional 500. First cohort, 125, will begin their induction this month. They'll be in places by the middle of the year, in places and communities such as Bathurst, in places like Goulburn, out to Broken Hill, up to Lismore and Ballina, right across regional, rural and remote New South Wales, because the community have been telling us one of their concerns is that when a paramedic goes to a site, they're often many hours away in these types of places. It leaves their town or community without a paramedic. What we're trying to do is fill those gaps with our very highly trained paramedics to improve the delivery of healthcare right across regional, rural and remote New South Wales. OK, Health Minister Ryan Park, appreciate your time this morning.